Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August meeting of the Plan Commission. Thank you to everyone who's joined us here in person and on Zoom. To go ahead and get us started, I'll call the meeting to order. Jack, would you call the roll?
Sure. Margaret Clemens. Tron Enright Randolph.
Here, I pressed the button on the speaker. I don't know if that's messing with the recording or anything. It looks like
I
we
can
got
hear
the
you.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. Bernie Garitas.
Here.
Jeff Morris.
Here.
Cheryl Munson. She may be joining by Zoom in a bit. Edward Ullman. Dee Owens.
Here.
Jerry Pittsford.
Here.
Julie Thomas.
Here, and I will note that Cheryl Munson's listed as an attendee. She needs to be promoted to panelist, and then she can be here.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So with Cheryl becoming a panelist, we have 8 members and a quorum. And if anyone has their Zoom on along the panelists here, if you could just turn the volume down and make sure there's no echo. I don't know if anyone has it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Moving on to introduction of evidence, Jackie.
Yes. I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence. The Monroe County zoning ordinance as adopted and amended. The Monroe County comprehensive plan is adopted and amended. The Monroe County subdivision control ordinance as adopted and amended. And the Monroe County Plan Commission rules of procedure as adopted and amended. And the cases that were legally advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
I move approval of the evidence.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the introduction of evidence. A vote in favor is a vote to approve. Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson. Edward Ullman.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
And I'll try Cheryl Munson one more time. Okay, not sure. The vote passes 7-0.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Jerry, you're going to make a motion to slightly alter the agenda to move the CDO and the rest of the administrative business to the end of the meeting, I believe.
Yes, sir. My motion is for the amendment of the agenda to place administrative business item number 1 as first on our agenda, followed by new business, which is a hearing of a petition, followed by the remainder of administrative business.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to amend the agenda as presented, which would be item number 1 under administrative business going first, going down to new business, and then returning to the remaining items under administrative business 2 through 4. A vote in favor is a vote to approve the amended agenda. Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Edward Ullman.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8-0.
Okay. Next item is the approval of the minutes for May 16, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. A vote in favor is a vote to approve. Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Edward Ullman.
Yeah.
Dee Owens.
Abstain.
Jerry Pittsford.
I abstain.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
I'm not sure where we're at on the vote. I'm not sure if I was in attendance. I wasn't able to.
You weren't listed as absent.
I just that's what I thought. So I'll have to recuse myself.
No, you were not listed as absent.
Oh, I was not.
Dee and I were, but not you.
Okay, then I'll motion or my vote is yes to approve the minutes.
Okay, Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Okay, so the vote is 6-0-2.
Okay.
And
Thanks, Jackie. So moving on to administrative business, the first item is the discussion with the highway department regarding driveways and subdivisions. Lisa?
Good evening. I won't take up too much of your time. So I'll just read kind of what I prepared just to kind of put in your mind. I wanted to speak for a few minutes and ask that possibly members of the board, highway planning, and legal staff could meet sometime at your convenience to discuss processes, responsibilities regarding subdivisions, the subdivision ordinance, and bonds. Some of my concerns are holding these developers accountable and finishing their projects. We have agreements that are signed, bonds that are posted, but whose responsibility is it to get these to completion? Who reduces their bond? Who oversees every step of the way? Our project manager and highway monitors bonds months before they expire. Then in many instances, he must stop at the bank on the day of expiration to pick them up. I believe they are to start the process of renewing or reducing their bond 4 months in advance. I've never understood why highway tracks the bonds for subdivisions when we only require the 2-year maintenance bond after completion. But it's been this way for 35 plus years. I want to make sure the highway is doing everything that they are required to do and try to get these projects to completion, get roads accepted if need be, and take care of them for those residents in those subdivisions. But not do duties that we have no legal authority to oversee, just because it's been that way. There's not a department or a person at fault here. Highway planning, health, building, we all work in open gov and we work very well together on these projects, but we can only do so much. We need the help and the responsibility to fall onto the petitioners and the developers, not the staff. We aren't building the subdivision. We provide guidance, ordinances, and specifications that are to be followed, and it's up to the developer or the petitioner to provide the requested information, keep bonds up to date, and follow the timeline and processes as outlined. We are in hopes that time could be dedicated to crafting a new ordinance under the CDO that better reflects what is happening on the ground with these subdivisions. And so the public and the county are not held responsible at the end of the day for finishing what these developers have started. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So the question was, are we willing to meet with highway and the building department?
Yeah, I think it would be a good step to kind of bring whoever's interested together. We've had, turnover in the departments. Things change, ordinances change. I don't follow the subdivision ordinance. I follow highway code. What's my responsibilities? We just want to make sure that a road is built correctly. That's all we have in it. But sometimes it seems like it falls back onto our MS4 coordinator, our project manager, or our engineer to help develop these developments when they're paying an engineer to do this. I feel like a lot falls onto the planning staff of overseeing these, and we can do so much in OpenGov. But again, it's hounding these developers. It's going after them for bonds. It's, I think we're kind of got lost in the process. I could name 4 subdivisions off the top of my head that have been in the works for many, many years. The roads are complete. There's issues with them. Developer will not reach out. They've walked away, so to speak. The people that pay for that is the residents of those subdivisions, Gentry East, Glen Meadows, Hoosier Aloha, Freeman Fields, Emerald Trace. And it's just, there's not enough bond. And it's my understanding that sometimes the developers will put trees and sidewalks onto homeowners. We don't have a bond with homeowners. We have a bond with that developer to finish this project. But we have so many sitting out there that we cannot maintain the roads. We get calls, we get yelled at, and the people in the subdivision can't get the roads done because there's nobody to take responsibility. So I don't know where to begin this process. I don't know how to make it work. I don't know how to fix it. But I think you have a really good planning department and highway department and legal department to make it work. But I think also there's responsibility because I believe you're the authority that approves these subdivisions and these, what they adhere to in these developments.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the members of the Planning Commission have comments, Commissioner Thomas?
My comment is this, I absolutely agree with you, and I think it's really a sad state of affairs because the bond is not sufficient for us to complete the project. So I think part of it is bonding. Clearly we're going to need to get more, we're going to need to figure out a better way to get a recommendation from you all about where things are with roads and whether they're up to county standards. But we don't know that when we're approving it, right? So we need to work on this. My suggestion will be twofold. I think it would be great if you, planning, legal sat down, figured out what is the best way to do this. Maybe look at what other counties are doing who aren't having this problem to this magnitude that we're having. And then come to a work session with whatever proposal you all come up with. I think I would be most interested to see what the outcome of that conversation is. And I think we could do something, hopefully statutorily. And if we need to go to the commissioners to change an ordinance or whatever, let's do that. Thank you for bringing this up.
Any other comments or thoughts?
And I'll just say that
Yeah.
Lisa was kind
Cheryl.
enough. Go ahead, Dee.
No, Cheryl has her hand up on the screen.
Okay, Cheryl, you
Hello,
want to go?
Hello there. I just wanted to second what Commissioner Thomas proposed. And the county council doesn't have much of a role in this, but we do have a commitment to good government, and we need to improve this for the health of our local government and for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jackie?
I was just going to thank Lisa for bringing this to our attention and working with planning staff ahead of time. We have been coordinating, and this has come to an issue because this is the way our ordinance is currently written. And so for us to be making changes, you will be seeing that in the county development ordinance. And we just want to make sure that we allocate the appropriate amount of time to this kind of discussion because these are longstanding issues, and I don't believe there's a silver bullet for fixing what's happened in the past, but hopefully we can come to a good agreement about how to deal with these in the future.
Thank you, Jackie. Any further comments from the Planning Commission?
I mean, I guess I'm still somewhat unaware of what is really being asked for us Planning Commission members to do, except for listen and entertain maybe some ideas of how to enhance this process. I mean, it's a little outside of what I've typically done on the Planning Commission, and I've been serving on the Planning Commission since 2016, and I think I served another year as a appointed member. So this is the first time I'm hearing about it. So I mean, like, we really need a lot more information about exactly what the issue is, like maybe some examples, what we're looking to fix. I mean, I feel just a little outside of my depth here. I'm not sure if anyone else does, but I'll speak for myself. And without a lot of information of exactly what you're asking, what the problem we're trying to fix is, I won't be able to really render any kind of opinion because I still don't really fully understand the problem.
Yeah, I think if we follow the route that Commissioner Thomas proposed and have a working group between legal, planning, and highway, we could become privy to the issues at hand and better discuss any recommendations. Yeah, Mr. Pittsburgh.
I also would like to be, would like included in the conversation, some discussion of the sufficiency of the bond, because I don't know in recent history if that's been a problem, but in the past it has been a problem. And right now we are in a rather volatile marketplace, I'm sure, for materials, and then for the developer side of things to commit money to a bond that you can't touch in such a high interest market is a significant factor. So we need a 360-degree view of this. So any kind of input from petitioners who have frequent road requests, road issues, or even just the history. We maybe don't need to hear exactly from them, but we do need a voice from the petitioners and not simply the county looking at only the county's perspective of it, because this is a business decision and we are part of the business of development for this county.
I just was wondering if anybody had an objection to working on this before the CDO. In other words, moving this up a little bit on the calendar. Is that okay with everyone if we could do that? Not wait for the final. Okay. If you could, I know you're busy. Thank you.
Any further comments? If not, Jackie, since this is administrative business, do we need a motion or can you just take it forward to schedule a meeting?
You do not have to take a vote if it's administrative. And I believe, Lisa, if you could send that, would you like me to send the letter out to the Plan Commission or I can send it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine. And I wasn't really asking anyone to do anything and no reaction today. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. It's nothing new. I've been there 35 years and it's been an ongoing situation for 35 years. So, but I think it's time, it's an opportunity to fix these instances that occur. And it also helps the residents of Monroe County that move into these new subdivisions. So it was just kind of hand in hand with trying to make it all work together with the CDO and the ordinance and working with the different departments to make this work so we can get away from these issues.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa, for bringing this forward tonight. Before we move forward, I noticed there's something in the chat. So could we check that to make sure that none of the Plan Commission members on Zoom are wanting to speak? Okay, thank you. So moving forward on our revised agenda to new business, the first case tonight is SMN-23-3. That's the Steinsville School and Fire Department minor subdivision, right of way with waiver requested, buried utility waiver requested, sidewalk waiver requested, street tree waiver requested. This is a preliminary hearing and a waiver of final hearing is requested. So Drew, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right, this is SMN 23-3, Steinsville School and Fire Department minor subdivision with the right-of-way with waiver request, buried utility waiver request, sidewalk waiver request, and street tree waiver request. There's also a request for the waiver of final hearing. This is 2 parcels in section 16 of Bean Blossom Township at 7951 West Main Street. So overall, the petitioner is proposing a 2-lot minor subdivision preliminary plat with the 4 waiver requests as stated. The property is zoned institutional/public or IP, where proposed lots are partially located within the town limits of Steinsville, Indiana. Proposed subdivision will create 2 lots. Lot 1 will total 0.72 acres with 0.297 acres of buildable area, while lot 2 will total 6.37 acres with 4.801 buildable acres. Both lots receive sewer utility service via the Steinsville Water Treatment Plant, and access to each of these lots will be through West Main Street and existing driveway cuts. So here I have a discussion of the waiver requests. They have 4 for this petition in particular. First is the right-of-way with waiver. According to Chapter 856, for a street that is classified as a minor collector, such as West Main Street in this area, the right-of-way dedication required for a subdivision is 45 feet. The petitioner is requesting only 17 feet in right-of-way dedication in this area along the frontage of both lots. And that is due to a number of reasons. One of those reasons is that in order for the former school building that exists on lot 2, in order for that building to maintain its meeting of the front setback requirement, this is the maximum amount of right-of-way that can be dedicated here. Additionally, for lot number 1, which currently exhibits the existing Bean Blossom Township Steinsville Fire Department structure, they're requesting only 17 feet of right-of-way at that lot as well, because the structure is very close to the roadway. And this is enough right-of-way to be dedicated so that they can still not have the structure itself be located within right-of-way. That structure will not be able to meet front setback, and a note, has been added to the plat that notifies of that distinction. Next, we have the buried utility waiver. Chapter 856 requires that all utilities be located underground. There are some exceptions to that rule, including utility lines that are above ground on public roads, right-of-ways, or in easements that serve other properties. So there are some utility lines within this subdivision that does meet the exemption. However, there is a line that planning notice that does extend into the property that does not serve any other properties that would require undergrounding. So that is why that waiver is here this evening. The next 2 waivers are sidewalk waiver and street tree waiver. Those are both required from Chapter 856, mainly due to the fact that the subdivision is located within a designated growth area in one of the rural communities as identified by the comprehensive plan. For the sidewalk waiver, there is an existing 4-foot sidewalk that is located on lot number 2, which is the former school property. That 4-foot sidewalk only occurs in that area. It does not connect to any other sidewalks in the town of Steinsville. And then there's not enough room in front of the existing fire station on lot number 1 for there to be a sidewalk. So that is the reasons for the sidewalk waiver here. Finally, the street tree waiver. It does require that trees be planted or preserved within 5 feet of the right-of-way and 1 tree planted for every 40 feet of frontage. There are 2 existing street trees in front of the former school building. However, it is one of planning staff's recommendations that in lieu of street tree plantings, that the preliminary plat be shown to have a tree preservation area instead. And I imagine the petitioner will have more to speak on the waivers and answer some questions from the Planning Commission as well. Here on the screen, I have the location map along West Main Street, the red highlighted polygon, and the site conditions map as well. So you will note that there are some slopes greater than 15%. However, those areas will not be disturbed because there will be no new development. This subdivision is mainly occurring to put the fire station and the school building on their own respective lots of record. The highway department has no comment given that West Main Street is maintained by the town of Steinsville. Stormwater provided some informational comments, basically in support of preserving existing trees and the planting of new trees if necessary, and also stating the benefits of having trees with regard to a stormwater perspective. Table 1 describes more details of each of the lots regarding acreage, buildable area, utilities, and other items. This is all included in the packet. On this screen, I have 2 aerial images. You can see the former school building in the foreground here, the largest building. And then to the north, you can see right next to the water tower, there is the existing volunteer fire station. Here we have the preliminary plat. And this next page is it zoomed in just a little bit more to give you a better view of what's being requested. Along where my cursor is, you can see the existing 4-foot sidewalk in front of the former school building. The 17-foot right-of-way requested along the entirety of the 2 lots. And again, up here, you can see the existing fire station being very close to that line and being very close to the road as well. These are just a few exhibits that are also included in the staff report. It's the Monroe County Vision Map that talks about how West Main Street is listed as a high priority road improvement. And then I also included a letter from the Division of Historic Preservation and Archaeology from the Indiana Department of Natural Resources that talks about just this year, the Steinsville Historic District was approved by that office. Okay, that brings me to the staff's recommendation. Overall, staff recommends approval of the subdivision based on the findings of fact that the proposed preliminary plat meets the subdivision control ordinance, subject to highway engineer reports, MS4 coordinator reports, with the following condition. 1, that the petitioner addressed all remaining comments from planning staff pertaining to plat edits. And planning staff also recommends approval of each of the 4 subdivision waivers. That includes the right-of-way width waiver, the overhead utility waiver, the sidewalk waiver, and the street tree waiver, the last of which with the additional condition of approval stating the petitioner designates an area on the plat to serve as tree preservation. I will now take any questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Thomas.
It's about the street tree waiver. I'm wondering if there's something we could create that would be worded a little bit more strongly. For example, to designate an area on a map could be 1 foot by 1 foot square, right? So, and it sounds like Ms. Latonia, our MS4 operator, has some suggestions or ideas for ways to enhance. This is a very slopey area, which slopes into the town on top of it. So, so I wonder if we could get something more strongly worded. And then my next question is, if an area is designated for tree preservation, does that become a conservation easement? Or is it just noted on a map and it gets into a file drawer and the electronic file drawer and never seen again?
So we can have people put on the plat a tree preservation area that doesn't count towards their buildable area. So when we're referencing the plat that gets recorded, we would know that that area is not supposed to be built on.
Okay.
I will say though, if they do go to remove those trees, it would take a planner looking at the plat to see that that area is preserved, and that could be enforceable. But I think either way, conservation easement or tree preservation area would probably be the same. So if you wanted to place it in a permanent conservation easement, we could do that as well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. I was just wondering if there's a legal distinction really between these two. I don't want to hinder their ability to build next to it or near it or whatever. I think designating area is a great thing. We never, when do we check, right? But same thing with the conservation easement, but I am wondering if we could get something worded a bit stronger on the planting of other trees. They don't have to be on the street, and I can see why they can't be on the street. But if Ms. Latonia believes that there is a call for it, that it would be beneficial, then instead of the street trees, we could have that. And whether it's preservation or planting a few more, whatever it may be. So I just would like something a bit stronger. Maybe it's something for the petitioners to think about when they come up here. But that's my only comment. Otherwise, makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Drew, can you check Zoom to see if anyone has hands raised, please? Okay, thank you, Jackie. Okay, we'll turn now to the petitioner. Is there someone who would like to represent the petitioner tonight? Thank you. You'll have 15 minutes. If you could start by writing your name and stating your name to us, please.
Good evening. My name is Darla Brown, and I represent the town of Steinsville.
And I don't have a whole lot to add to the staff report. I think it was very thorough. As noted, the whole purpose of this petition is to simply memorialize something that's been in place for years now. The fire station has been there since 1963. The location looks pretty much like it has since 1963. And so currently the fire station encroaches on what is now the town's territory, and the town just wants to separate out the parcel so that the town has its own parcel and the fire department has its own. With regard to the trees, we will do obviously whatever the Plan Commission wants us to do. Certainly Doug Graham is willing to go back and indicate an area on the plat for tree preservation. If you can go back to the pictures though that show the fire station and the trees, there's really not too much, there's no space for anyone to go to build, because that parking lot area there is going to still belong to the town. And it's my understanding that the terrain behind the fire department is pretty rough. So I'm not saying somebody couldn't get back there to cut down trees or build, but they need a lot of equipment. So it's not likely it's going to happen. And you can see how close the fire station is to the road there. So thank you for hearing us out. And we are asking for several waivers, but we appreciate your attention and we'd ask you to grant all of them and the petition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. Do any members of the Plan Commission have questions for Ms. Brown?
Okay,
Thank you.
you.
We will now turn to the public speaking portion of the event. So is there anybody here that is here to speak in favor of this petition, or anybody on Zoom? Thank you, Randy. If you could
Hey, Dan,
state your name.
Randy Cassidy, and just a member of the public, but part of the area that we look at in regards to Steinsville. And I think hopefully, Jerry, you understand in regards to it, the smaller community that has a heart and a soul of itself. And I would encourage everybody in the Plan Commission and the members of the public that are here to go over and support the Steinsville General Store. Look at the area and see that, you know, that's where the heart of limestone started in Monroe County. And the Steinsville Town Board and what they're doing to try to separate the fire station and keep it all moving forward is a testament to the individuals that are trying their best to make that community what it was in the 1800s and to grow it accordingly. And with the fire station having its own thing, the town having itself, and the county commissioners and the Plan Commission supporting this, I think could be a good thing for our rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Is there anybody else here that's interested in speaking in favor of the petition, or anyone on Zoom? If not, we'll turn to members of the public or on Zoom that may be interested in speaking against the petition. Doesn't look like we have anybody to speak against either. So with that, I will bring it back to the Plan Commission for any comments or discussion or a motion.
I do have one question. The zoning that's going to be on the former school building, does it provide a broad range of opportunities for reuse of that building without any change in zoning? Because I think that is probably going to be an essential concern for them going forward. So if it's not addressed in this petition, maybe we can address it when we do the CDO and get some sort of attention to that.
I can pull up the table for the chapter 802 that states all the permitted uses in the IP zoning district. But it looks like there are some uses that are available to the site. I'm not sure of what Steinsville is wanting to do with that property. I know that there's been some conversation in the past about what their plans are for that structure. But I know that planning staff has talked about the idea of a PUD as well in the past to provide some flexibility in zoning.
Okay, well, and I don't think we necessarily at this time need to go through those. I just know that that building, if it's going to be in continued use, some conditional uses are going to have to be considered, because it's going to take really some creative thinking to make that building a viable use going forward. So I'd hate for them to get very far down the road on some creative proposal to find out that then they have to go through the zoning process. And the old adage is to strike when the iron's hot. And if you get into that situation, the iron would cool pretty quickly. So since I know that folks concerned with that building are here, I said I'd mention that.
Any other questions or comments?
I know this is, they've asked for a waiver of the final hearing, but I'd really like to get something a little bit clearer on the street tree waiver. And I will note for the record that I went out during the tornado cleanup early in the summer, and the school was put to great use by the Red Cross. So I really appreciate that they were willing to help out the community in that way. It was a nice community center for that recovery effort. But I would rather wait to get something clearer on paper on this. Thank you.
To that item, Julia, we do have in the subdivision control ordinance, there's some language about tree preservation. In chapter 856-43B2, it states that the number of trees planted or preserved shall be equivalent to 1 tree for every 40 feet of frontage for the proposed lot. Such trees shall be planted or preserved for any subdivision not identified in chapter 856-43B1. Then it continues on about talking about administrative subdivision procedure. So we could include just that language simply. The number of trees planted or preserved shall be equivalent to 1 tree for every 40 feet of frontage. That way it preserves the same number of trees that was going to be planted.
That would be great for me. It's clearer than what we have now, and I don't know if the petitioner is okay with that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments, or is someone willing to make a motion?
Yeah, quick question on this, or maybe a solution. On the plat that Mr. Graham drew, I'm good, thanks. On that south line, and maybe the aerial will help. Is that shaded area that's not the one in the packet, is it? Okay. I guess it is, but it's just bigger. Is that south line, the hashing drew, is that intended to be where the tree preservation, or is that just showing the trees?
The hatching that you see is the slope that's greater than 15%.
Okay, on the south side, because it looks like on the aerial, when I'm switching back to that, it looks like on the aerial, that entire south line is wooded.
I believe that most of the area that is over 15% in slope is currently wooded, although I can't say for certain.
Because one thing I would be concerned with is where the fire department is located physically, and that tree area that's just to the east of it. I don't know that we would want to get into the tree preservation area there, partly for what Ms. Brown said with the, if there's any expansion.
Yeah.
But I think we could probably get a motion to where at least satisfaction of the ordinance and planning staff and the MS4 operators, that's something that would work for you, Jim.
That would be fine, because I understand, yes, where the heaviest slope is where the trees are now, but there's also some area that is at the top of the slope into the town that has very few trees. And so there's somewhere on here where it would make sense. And if we could just have them work with MS4, that would be perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I can make a motion. Jerry, you wanted to make a motion on this one? Have that discussion short, but I'm just trying to. Okay, you ready?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay, in the matter of SMN-23-3, this is the Steinsville School and Fire Department minor subdivision. This is a 2-lot minor subdivision preliminary plat. I move that we approve this subdivision with the positive recommendation based on the findings of fact and that the proposed preliminary plat meets the subdivision control ordinance, and it's subject to the highway department, highway engineer's report, MS4 coordinator, and the conditions that follow. Approve the
that the petitioner address all remaining comments from the planning staff pertaining to plat edits. I also add that we approve the right-of-way with waiver based on the findings of fact, the overhead utility waiver based on those findings of fact, approve the sidewalk waiver based on the findings of fact, and we approve the street tree waiver based on the findings of fact, and that the petitioner and the petitioner's representative work with staff and the MS4 operator to conclusively determine where those tree preservation areas are going to be. Those areas are platted in the definition that Drew read under 856. Is that the proper chapter? Under 856 are listed on the plat. So from here forth, everybody can understand exactly what the agreement is. I think that's all I've got.
Second.
Okay, Jackie, we have a motion and a second. Could you call the roll for us? After you finish your notes.
Okay, and just to clarify, do you wish to recommend approval on the basis of the petitioner's findings or on staff's findings in the packet?
The petitioner's findings.
Okay, so we will prepare those. I believe Margaret needs to sign those. Is that?
Yeah, including your motion, that Margaret is authorized to sign on behalf of the planning commission.
I would friendly amendment. I would add that President Margaret Clemens is authorized to sign on behalf of the Planning Commission.
Accepted as a friendly amendment.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve SMN 23-3, which includes the preliminary plat subdivision with the condition that the petitioner address all remaining comments from planning staff pertaining to all plat edits, approve the right-of-way with waiver, approve the overhead utility waiver, approve the sidewalk waiver, and approve the street tree waiver based on the findings of facts provided by the petitioner that will be signed and is authorized to be signed by the Plan Commission President with the following condition on the street tree waiver: that the petitioner and representative work with the MS4 coordinator to determine the area of tree preservation to be in compliance with chapter 856-41. Is that right?
Yeah, and we're waiving the final hearing. Right?
Yes, if I did not have that.
Yeah.
Waive the final hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that, to clarify that last motion, 856-43, apologies, and then it includes a waiver of final hearing.
Yes.
Okay, so a vote in favor is a vote to approve all of those items as well as a waiver of final hearing. So I will call the roll. And I do want to make a note that I apologize. Chris Cockrum is our city representative and he is present. He's a non-voting member tonight, but I do want to acknowledge his presence. Apologize, Chris. Okay, Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. So that finishes up our new business. So we'll jump back to the second item under administrative business, which is case SIA-23-1, the Brenda Ball Minor Subdivision Improvement Agreement. Daniel?
Thank you. So the petitioner is requesting to release an existing financial gratuity required as part of the subdivision improvement agreement for the Brenda Bog Minor Subdivision. The improvements required on this agreement include only street trees, of which there were 11 in the subdivision total. Furthermore, the SIA, it was found, was only for the installation of 5 street trees on lot 2. The amount of the performance bond is for $1,155.00. This original SIA was finalized on May of 2015. The location of the street trees is on private property, and therefore the requirements for a maintenance bond is not required. And while an initial site visit and subsequent review by staff found that one of the 5 required street trees was missing, said missing tree has been since planted. So here is 858-8, which is for the release or reduction of performance bond and financial guarantee. The commission may release or reduce the performance bond. I'm sorry, would the board like me to run through all this?
Not particularly.
All right. And here is the letter to the Plan Commission and the Plan Department. And on the right is the original letter that has a photo of the cashier's check. And here is the subdivision improvement and agreement itself. I do want to call attention again to number 2 in section street trees on lot 2. And here is a plat for the Brenda Bog Minor subdivision. Again, for the 5 trees on lot 2, as you can see here. This center tree here, that was the one that staff determined was missing and has since been planted. These are site photos. It can be a little hard to see. I confess I'm not the best photographer here, but there are 2 trees here. This was before the 5th tree was planted, as well as 2 trees for this location here. And here they are in a site visit that was conducted, I want to say last month. And as you can see, the 5th tree has been planted. And so staff recommends releasing the financial guarantee of $1,155 for the Brenda Bog Minor subdivision without the need for a 2-year maintenance bond.
Hey, are there any questions for Daniel?
I'll ask a question. Is this related to some of what the discussion was at the beginning of the meeting where,
Yes.
okay, so I remember seeing some of these at our admin meeting saying, you know, a lot of this is not something that is discussed extensively at the Plan Commission. So I guess more information on these types of, you know, requests would be very helpful. It sounds like the problem has been fixed. It sounds like we're releasing this, but I guess my real question, does this just naturally like become released after everything is in compliance? Why are we releasing it? So we can free up their capital or something? Like, is there not like a sunset on this, or when they like hit compliance, it just automatically, why are we seeing a higher frequency of these requests?
So according to the subdivision control ordinance, if a person who subdivides a property is not able to finish all of the improvements at the time of final platting, which is when the lots get created and building permits can be issued, they can file for a financial guarantee, letter of credit, or a cashier's check. So in this case, the person applied under a cashier's check because I-69 was doing work along the road frontage and they couldn't put in the street trees at the time because they would be damaged. So we take in the cashier's check. As Lisa mentioned earlier, that's done by a project manager at the highway department, and it becomes a budget line. In order to release that budget line back to the applicant, we have a requirement under the ordinance to take it to you all for that release or reduction. So if you agree that our staff site visit is adequate and that you can see that the street trees are being planted and that the requirement is being met, you could authorize us to release those funds back to the subdivider.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just have a kind of a question that pertains somewhat to this, but more general. How many bonds or cashier checks or I guess line items are out there that are waiting to be released once they come to compliances. Is there any, now that's just maybe for future discussion. So, you know, I get a better sense of really what kind of issues going on and where maybe we can provide some assistance, recommendations, and even ultimately a solution to kind of what was expressed earlier today. So I'm very curious of how many, I guess, lines, if you will, or it sounds like there's 3 different ways that they are able to kind of proceed, and how many of those are still kind of under the plan commission to release. So I know I'm not asking that super clear because I still not really versed in this way of this part of the plan commission.
Yeah, I would say there's at least 20 and that we could give you a better report back once we do a little bit more research and meet with the highway department and present that information to you all in a comprehensive way.
Okay. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
I just have one point for the clarity of the record here. Under petitioner, we have Elizabeth Taylor listed as owner and Elizabeth Taylor as applicant, but the documents in the petition bear the name Elizabeth Thompson.
I think that might be a genuine typo on our part. It is supposed to be.
Okay. Well, just for the sake of having a clear public record, that should be corrected.
Any other comments or questions? I don't see any hands raised on Zoom either. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'm willing to make a motion. I guess I just need to know how to cite it. Get back to the
I
agenda.
think it's up on the screen there, Tron.
Okay. Just staff, or I move to release the financial Is there no case number or like, that's it? Like,
SIA-23-1.
I should have just let someone else make this motion. I'm sorry.
It's on page 5.
I've got it. I'll just go ahead and do it if you don't mind. In case number SIA-23-1, this is a request for release of financial guarantee for subdivision tree requirement, which has been met. I move approval.
Second. Thanks, Jerry.
No worries.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to release the subdivision improvement agreement financial guarantee for SIA-23-1. A vote in favor is a vote to release the $1,155 for the Brenda Ball minor subdivision as a result of street tree installation. Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel, for presenting that to us. So moving on to item number 3 under administrative business, the fee schedule for reconstruction due to damage. Jackie, I assume that's you.
Okay, so last time we spoke, we discussed possibly 2 options for the fee reduction as a result of natural disaster or disaster. So staff has placed in the packet 2 options for your consideration. So the first option reads reconstruction from damage due to fire, flood, wind, earthquake, explosion, etc. And the fee would be $50. The second option reads reconstruction from damage due to natural disasters such as wildfire, flood, wind, earthquake, explosion, etc. And the fee would be $50. So the difference would be whether the plan commission finds it pertinent to have a fee reduction based on a natural disaster, or if it could be encompassed as just having some sort of disaster that may or may not be natural on the property and the reduction of fee.
I have a comment on that, if you're done.
Yeah, go ahead, Dee.
Thank you. Technically, a wildfire can be either natural or human caused. Explosion is usually human caused. Flood can be either. I mean, it might be better just to say due to a disaster.
Go ahead, John.
I'm in complete support of just due to a disaster. I think any type of relief that we can provide for someone experiencing difficulties is, I think, is a public service that we should be looking to strive for.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think that having to make that determination is just a lot of extra time that the petitioner won't need or won't have, and we shouldn't spend on this type of thing. I just trust people to do the right thing, I guess. But if anybody's very concerned about making sure that it is something larger scale, we could make it contingent on having an emergency declaration in the county about the event. Because we did that for the floods, we did that for the tornadoes, that takes into account a lot of FEMA issues and loans and grants and things like that for homeowners and business owners. But it is something that recognizes that it was not a one-off. It was not a single resident impacted. But for me, I don't think we need to do that. I'm happy enough to just help people, whatever caused the fire, the damage. Let's just get them back on their feet.
Right. Thank you. Any other comments? I do agree that it feels like any type of disaster that somebody's going through, that anything we can do to help, I'm sure would be appreciated. So I think differentiating just makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
Any other comments, or is anybody willing to make a motion?
Can we just make a motion to for the second one, but take out the word natural, so the word disaster is still there?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I had to read it. I had to see it on that screen. Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Do you need that
No, I can read it.
better, or is that good?
I'll go ahead and read it out loud. So the motion has been moved to change the fee schedule to read as follows. Reconstruction from damage due to disaster such as wildfire, flood, wind, earthquake, explosion, etc. would be a fee of $50. A vote in favor is a vote to add that line item into the fee schedule. Bernie Geritas,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8-0.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie, for bringing that back this month. So we'll move to item number 4, which is the last item on administrative business, the CDO work session. Jackie?
Wetlands. Remember they had to deal with the wetlands.
So I wanted to bring to your attention the CDO Module 2 that has been posted online. We were unable to meet at the administrative meeting, but I wanted to bring it forward as an administrative item to the Plan Commission and bring you up to speed on what staff has been working on and some questions that we have for the Plan Commission that hopefully we can get answered from you all. So the first item I want to bring up is that we are going to be hosting 4 listening sessions throughout the county. We have online a flyer that one of our planners, Ann Crecelius, was able to make for us. So there's 4 locations that we will be hosting public meetings in the county, and I'll go ahead and just read those out loud since we're hoping that anyone listening on CATS TV or in person are able to attend. So the first meeting is Thursday, August 24th at 5:30 p.m. at the Monroe County Public Library. The second meeting is on Tuesday, August 29th at 5:30 at Ivy Tech Community College. That will be in Lampkin Hall. The third meeting will be at the Ellettsville Town Hall on Tuesday, August 31st at 5:30. And the fourth and final meeting will be Thursday, September 5th at 5:30, which will be at the Monroe County Government Center, room 100B. There will be Zoom options for all 4 meetings. And the goal of these listening sessions are to listen to the public. So we will, so 2 goals that I have stated here. So we want to listen to county residents, whether they're satisfied or dissatisfied with their individual draft zoning, and then also relate that draft zoning map back to the draft use list so that we can use these meetings as a way of informing the public of not only what their draft zone will be, but how to utilize the draft CDO and get their comments. And we believe that that will be useful down the line as we go into public hearings, and we can make revisions to the module 2 so that it best reflects the community's wants and needs. At the meeting, we will have a handout, which is also online on our monroecdo.com website. And this will be useful for anyone that attends in person or that's online. If they want to call our office, if they're unable to attend, they can fill out this handout, by phone, or we can help them in person. And the purpose of this handout is to discuss what your current zoning is, how to identify it, what your proposed zoning is, and to talk to a planner about what might be changing on your property. So on the backside, we'll have some frequently asked questions such as, what is zoning? How does it affect my property? What is the CDO? How do I know what is changing on my property? If I speak during a listening session, how will my testimony be heard? And how will I be alerted when the CDO is going for public hearings? So I will speak to one of the items on this frequently asked questions page. How will my testimony affect the CDO zoning map? We believe that these meetings will be listening sessions, but they are not public hearings. County officials that will be tasked with reviewing and ultimately approving the CDO will be interested in listening to people's opinions about the zoning map and the use table, and staff will compile all testimony heard during these listening sessions to refer back to once the time comes for adoption of the CDO. Does that encompass your hopes for the listening sessions? Is there anything else that, okay. Edward, you want to go ahead?
Just kind of a point of clarity. When you listed the locations, number 1 was listed as Monroe County Public Library. Just for clarification, that is the new Southwest branch.
Yes, the new Southwest branch.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know, you might want to document. I'd hate for somebody to show up to the downtown branch or something. So
Yes, on the flyer, it's better worded. It does have the address 900 West Gordon, but
okay.
Yes, thank you. Good clarification. Okay, I'll keep moving.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry. Is this is a copy of this flyer with that information? Is that available on the CDO
Yes,
website?
it is
Perfect.
linked on the CDO website.
Great.
It's also on the document center, and we've got it posted up in the showers building, but we'll
Great.
be posting some flyers here soon.
Great.
If anyone wants copies that they're able to post at respective locations you think might be helpful, let us know.
Do you have this on a PowerPoint slide besides this one? Do you have it sort of
Digital?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so could you provide that to TSD to show before the county commissioner meetings?
Yes.
Thank you.
We can do.
County council too, might as well.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Jackie, I received an email about this afternoon. So could you mention for anybody that is listening how to get on the email list?
Yes, so we have a pretty robust email listserv. And if you would like to be added to that listserv, you can go to monroecdo.com and there's a tab for public input and you can sign up for updates on our website and that will add you to the list.
Thank you.
So I do have a few questions for the Plan Commission based on the CDO draft and that I would like to go through with you. First off, on the screen, I know it's small print because it is a lot of text. I will have a zoomed in version of this, but this is something that we'd asked the consultants to work on and we are excited about. It's going to be a 2-pager for every zoning district. It's going to list all of the uses permitted, accessory, conditional on one page. And then on the second page, it's going to be all of your design standards. What are your setbacks? What's your minimum lot size? Things like that with an illustration at the bottom. So anyone that is interested in their zoning will be able to just print off 2 pages of the zoning ordinance and get a very good idea of what's in the document without going through several chapters. So we are excited about this template that they've offered us, but we do want to go over some of the content with you this evening just to get your eyes on it and some feedback. So something that's new in this module 2 draft is the design standards. So this will be the minimum lot width, minimum lot size, maximum height, setbacks, things of that nature. So this will look a little bit different than what we have currently in the zoning ordinance. And I'd like to point out a few differences and also ask you a few questions. So the first question that I have for you is in regards to minimum lot width at building line. We are proposing that there be 2 different standards for minimum lot width. One is for development. So that means you have a pre-existing lot that's zoned Ag 2.5 in this instance, and you would like to put a residence on it or an accessory structure. That's one instance. The other instance is you're creating a subdivision of 2 or 3 lots, and that would be required to have a certain minimum lot width to meet those standards. So in other words, if you're subdividing, we're asking that you meet the 200-foot lot width, which is what the ordinance currently requires. But if you're not subdividing and you're just coming in for a building permit for a residence or an accessory structure, we would hold you to a lower threshold for a minimum lot width of only 125 feet. And the reason that staff is proposing this smaller lot width is due to some of the data that we've seen come through our office since 1999. We've looked at over 54 variances from 1999 with 53 that have been approved and 1 that was denied. And the 53 that were approved ranged anywhere from 90 feet up to 180 feet. So much more likely that if someone comes to us with a minimum lot width issue for an existing lot, they tend to get granted variances. And so our goal with this CDO is to look at the best use of our staff time moving forward. And we want to make sure that we get it right, but we also want to, make sure that the Plan Commission's wishes are heard. So I didn't know if you had any comments or feedback on the lot width change.
Go ahead, Commissioner Thomas.
This makes a lot of sense to me because it avoids a problem with a flag lot or trying to build something on a flag lot that should not have anything built on it, where the pole of the flag lot should be the driveway. So this makes a lot of sense to me, and it's really great that you've used your data very well to try to avoid the need for residents to file variances. So it makes sense to me. Thanks.
My only question is, does this cause confusion down the road? I think what you're proposing makes sense. And like Commissioner Thomas said, I like that you're using data to make these decisions. But I'm curious if you're subdividing a lot right now, the 125-foot distance would apply. What if somebody comes to you 20 years from now on that lot and wants to build? Does the 200-foot distance apply, or is it still the 125?
So are you talking about subdivisions that will have been in place prior to this ordinance or after the ordinance goes into effect?
I think either one. I think in my mind, I was thinking if somebody subdivides next year after this ordinance is in place,
Okay.
and then comes back 20 years from now, wants to build something, which would apply?
So the way that we would read this table is that if they're going through the subdivision procedure after this ordinance is in effect, they would have to meet the 200-foot lot width.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
The next question that we have is in regards to lot size. So similarly, we've seen a lot of variances come through regarding the 2.5 acres. So we have taken 94 variances from 1999 to present, and 3 have been denied. I looked up the median lot sizes of the draft zoning map of the Ag 2.5 properties, and it looks like right now it's about 1.3 acres. Now, staff could go back and try to rezone all of those properties that are under the 2.5 acre to an appropriate zone to make them smaller, to have a smaller minimum lot size. But we don't want to have situations in which, you know, there may be 1 lot or 2 lots in an area of Ag 2.5 that we would then have to separate out just due to lot size. We're wondering if it makes sense to have some discretion to allow for a deviation from that 2.5 acre minimum, or if staff would rather, or if you would rather staff just go through and attempt to zone those properties for the sake of the minimum lot size only. Worded another way, if there is a character of an area that's agricultural in nature, but it doesn't meet the minimum lot size of 2.5 acres, staff feels that it meets all the other intents of the district. And so only to rezone it to meet the minimum lot size may not be what the goal is of the zoning map. So if it's important to take into account the lot size first and then the character second, we could do that. Or if there's room for some discretion there to allow us, you know, we've asked prior about maybe having some sort of 25% deviation to the 2.5 acre. Right now it's 10% in the ordinance that we're allowed to grant a waiver for. So we just would like to get your thoughts on this before we proceed.
Go ahead, Bernie.
So the reason why we probably had 94.
Sorry, can you speak into the mic?
The reason why we probably had 94 variance requests was because on the last zoning ordinance, we overlaid agro reserve on areas that adapted to the character versus what the individual lot sizes were at the time. Would that be correct?
That would be, yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
We haven't necessarily subdivided property, to my knowledge, since the 1997 ordinance that have been under that threshold. I know prior to that timeline, we used to allow subdivisions lower than the minimum lot size, which has created some difficulties for us. But moving forward, we have not. So it may have just been an error at the time of the 1997 zoning map. But people do identify sometimes with the naming of these districts and sometimes can be alarmed at the change of their district naming or zoning district. And so I want to verify that it's first important to factor in the lot size and then address that to the lot or the zoning district that most matches that lot size. Or if you want us to go by what the character of the area is, what it's used as, and then have a deviation of that lot size.
So then if you could explain again, a little slow here, the 10% and the 25% and how staff would, or the plan commission, whoever would use that as a tool to use that as a tool.
Yes. So right now, if there's a 10% deviation and someone comes forward with a 2.25 acre lot, they are not required to go through the variance process. But if they have 2.24 acres, they would be required to go through the variance process. increasing that to 25% would give that person even more room to be able to develop on the lot without getting a variance first.
What would be that math? Sorry.
62.5%,
Okay.
or 6.62 acres, sorry.
0.62 would be if they had 25% of discretionary measure.
5% of 2.62 acres.
Oh, so then minus that. So
They'd have to have a 1.875 acre parcel lot size.
I guess since I jumped on that mic, I'm inclined to support increasing the discretion of the planning commission to 25%. That's
Planning department.
oh yeah. Well, planning department, planning staff.
Okay.
This room team. I think adding that discretion could only favor certain parcels out there that don't meet the 2.5 minimum. And I'm in support of that.
I think Dee, you were next, and then we'll go to Jerry.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd agree with Tron on that. I think, working with the BZA, we see this all the time, and I love this data. It's beautiful. It really is. When I imagine if we tweak things, how much time we could save, both on the part of the BZA, but mostly on the part of staff after prepare all that, it makes a whole lot of sense just from that perspective alone. So I'd say go for it.
Jerry?
Okay, thank you. I was kind of writing what I wanted to say, so I didn't trip over my words too much. But I think if Plan Commission can rightly take for granted that the staff is committed to the intent of the ordinance and following the ordinance with fidelity when possible, to the letter of the ordinance, then, and I think we can, I think Plan Commission can take that step and believe that that is the true intent of staff, is always to do what the ordinance says, to give them the flexibility to respond to a situation and provide good customer service to petitioners with a 25% fudge factor, for lack of a better terminology, is appropriate. You are the ones who face these people right there. And to submit or to subject, rather not submit, but to subject petitioners to a variance process that very easily could have been resolved over the counter in the planning office seems unfair. So I fully support this, because I think based on only 3 denials on 94 requests, it shows that these requests are basically sailing through the Board of Zoning Appeals, who are simply saying what staff would have said had they been given the opportunity. And for that reason, I seriously support this and think we really ought to kick ourselves for not having thought of it earlier. And I thank Jackie and whoever else was responsible for bringing this forward, because I think it makes county government much more responsive to the citizens of the county who are impacted. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to throw something out there, and everybody's going to moan and hold their heads in angst. I don't know why you have a 2.5 acre minimum lot size if you're not going to have 2.5 acre minimum lot size of 2.5 acres. So do we need another lot size? Do we need an ag RR 1.5? That looks just like 2.5 except. And so if you look at that list of all of the uses by right and the conditional uses, some of those don't fit in a 1.5. So is it possible then to go back and grant that Ag RR 1.5 to those lots that are less than 2.5, but more than 1.5, and call them that, but the uses will be more limited. Typically this happens because the lots are just not available at a larger size. It's not like somebody's trying to go on the cheap and buy something smaller and, you know, have the Ag RR designation. I just think that while I agree that we don't want to make people go through a variance process, what's the point of calling it 2.5 if it really means 1.8? That to me doesn't make sense. And I don't think, I think we need to be very clear that if you do that on this one, you need to do that, I think, to be fair, on all of them. And so if you're a 25% off, either pro or con on any of your minimum lot sizes, that's a pretty big variance over the course of the county. That worries me. So there's got to be another way to do this. I don't know what it is, but I'm uncomfortable with this only being applied to one zone. So I assume it's going to be applied everywhere. And then what's the point? Thanks.
Go ahead, Bernie.
I think the interesting point you brought up, Julie, was that this would transfer over to the other zoning districts potentially. Have you thought of that at staff, that this would be something that would trickle over to the other zones?
So right now, as it's written in chapter 804, it does specifically relate only to the Ag RR, FR, CR zoning districts. I could pull that up, but I believe it's not to all of the zoning districts, but let me go ahead and pull that up and see what it says currently.
So
I thought ER was listed in there as well. If I remember correctly, I might don't have it open.
Electronic or paper?
Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read what it says currently and share the screen. Okay, so this is what we have currently under chapter 804. It says lot layout measurements in the LR, MR, and HR zoning districts when parcels are connected to a public sewer disposal system or Ag RR, CR, FR, and ER zoning districts. And it says legal pre-existing lots of record shall be deemed to conform to the height, bulk, area, and density regulations when one of the following situations is present. Lot is in a platted subdivision, or the director determines that the lot or parcel configuration measurements are consistent with the prevailing measurements for lots and parcels in the neighborhood. In making the determination, the director shall not approve a deviation of greater than 10% of the standards set forth in the table.
These are lots that are already created. These are parcels that have been through the subdivision process, at some point have been approved, and then the zoning on them now is such that they can't meet the requirement. Is that correct? So we're not creating lots that are a 25% deviation from what's required. We're responding to the fact that these lots exist in a zoning category that came about when they were after the point where they were created legally, correct?
Yes, this is how this would be read.
Okay,
Yes.
so somebody has this piece of property, this parcel, okay, and it's in a subdivision and it has less than 2.5. They go to build on it and they discover that the zoning doesn't allow them to build on this parcel because it's, off by 0.2 of an acre, half an acre. And now, instead of being able to build on this parcel in this subdivision that they thought that when they bought it, they could build a house on, now they have to go through the variance process, correct? That's what we're dealing with.
Well, the last part you said, if it's in a subdivision,
Right.
if it is in a subdivision, that standard would not,
Okay, but it's in a piece, but it's a piece of property. It's a parcel that existed.
yes, if it were
Okay.
not subdivision, yes.
And it existed in this size.
Yes,
Okay. All right. So it's fair to assume that whoever bought that parcel didn't consider the overlying zoning on it and felt like if they bought it, they could use it.
that does occur frequently with people purchasing property, but we do, have other land use regulations too that we have to inform
Right,
them of
right.
that point.
I understand. But then somebody comes in and says, I bought this lot 10 years ago. I just now found out that it's 2.2 acres and it has to be 2.5 for me to build a house on it. And you say, yes. And they say, well, what am I going to do? Well, you have to go through the variance process. That's great. That's wonderful. That is exactly the way citizens ought to be treated in the county. I don't think so. Go ahead.
I think it goes back to Jackie's original question. How do we want staff to define the overall zone? And do we want to just whatever falls under this sheet of paper because it's geographically consistent within a region of the county? That's all agro reserve, or do we want to go through and mine the data for smaller parcels that would fall underneath that sheet of paper that would be agro reserve and determine which ones would be deficient based on what you're proposing? I think that goes back to the original question as to how we want to, it all goes back to how it looks on the map and how we fix the colors, right? But that would be the question. So I guess maybe as a solution, and with GIS, maybe it's simpler. I'm not going to say it's simple, but maybe under the agro reserve zone, then we look and see, I hate to mess with outliers and standard deviation and all that stuff, but see where you are with your average of 1.3 acres. Because I understand where Julie's saying about another agro reserve zone in there, but that gets a little gitchy. And maybe we do have a less contiguous region. This piece of paper is kind of this instead of just a nice kind of area that we can just overlay and say, yeah, that part of the county is agro reserve.
I think you also run into problems too, though, where people look down the street and are making comparisons, and so this is zoned this one and this is zoned this other one. And then on the other side, it goes back to the one that it was before.
But if one is,
and that it destroys the predictability, and that's always a concern, the predictability of what the overlying zoning is.
so if one is 13 acres and one is 1.75 acres, you wouldn't necessarily have that predictability, I don't think, because you're on the same roadway. I think I would like to see if there's a way to mine that data and to find out what impact this is on the number of parcels. The 96% or three denials out of 96 petitions is what I'm kind of hanging my hat on, that staff should have a lot of latitude here, but we are creating the zone that falls over these areas. So I think we've got a tool to understand how close we are now, and then we can find out even if it's a problem. Is that a big task, Jackie, to go through and?
No, I think that's good guidance. I'll also mention though that by changing the zone based on the lot size alone, we will be shifting the uses that'll be permitted within that area. So if it's, let's say the majority of the lots that are lower than the 2.5 acre threshold are used for residential anyways, we could verify that. But if they're used as agricultural, I would be less persuaded to rezone them to a residential zone to make their use non-conforming. So that's where the discretion for the size may be handy, but I understand that it defeats the purpose of the naming of the district and other attributes of the district. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that zoning map and try to reallocate some of those smaller lots to a different zone and maybe report back to you on some of those changes when we get to the draft zoning map.
I have one final comment. And it just goes kind of to all those pre-existing non-conforming parcels out there. And I've said this a lot, that we need to figure out a way to provide them opportunity to do things. I feel like we've really kind of hamstrung a lot of potential, development on these pre-existing non-conforming lots in all the zones. And I don't think that's a good way to move forward by trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It kind of feels like one person got in trouble and we punished the whole class. So I really strongly advocate for any ability for staff to build in more flexibility for these pre-existing non-conforming lots that are across the county. And yes, I do think technology can help assist with some analysis, but the data is not necessarily perfect. So I understand being able to do the best that you can with what we have with our parcel data. And Cressilius made a great point that our right-of-way parcels might kind of skew some of the initial analysis, but there's other codes that kind of distinguish what type of use those parcels are. So that might help filter out some of kind of the data. So making sure we're only looking at lots and not right away. So, but again, I think we really need to figure out a way to address these pre-existing non-conforming lots across the entire county, not just in this particular zone.
The last item on this design standard table, which I hope that this discussion will encourage everyone to take a closer look at the module 2 draft. And certainly we're not covering all the content even within this table, but these are some of the important points that I think we want to point out that's changing. So the last item is this discussion about the maximum impervious cover and then a maximum impervious cover for development within a critical watershed. So if a lot is within a critical watershed that the MS4 program has put together a shapefile layer, we would be able to pull up a lot and see whether it's constrained by that layer, then it would have a smaller impervious cover allowance. So right now, under the zoning ordinance, we have a maximum lot coverage, and in some zones, we have a minimum open space area requirement. So the difference between lot coverage and impervious cover is impervious cover is everything that in which water cannot drain. So that would include driveways, that would include other, decks, concrete patios, tennis courts, basketball courts, things like that are not covered right now under lot coverage. So this is a large distinction that we want to make sure we have support, or whether you would like to see any changes to this. We're still fine tuning the square footages and trying to get those correct based on what we see as an average in the county. But do you have any thoughts on switching from lot coverage to impervious cover? Turn the mic on. Right?
I think that the percent impervious are too low.
Okay.
If you look at a 2.5 acre parcel, you're only looking at 16,000 square feet of building, barn, impervious cover over the parcel. And if you've got a 2.5 acre lot, that may not be enough for what you need or what you want. Heaven forbid we do what we want, but that's something I think we need to look at. I don't know what
other standards we have out there, but it just doesn't seem like a lot to me.
Would a water feature or a pond be counted as impervious surface?
That wouldn't be counted against the impervious cover. It's mostly just things that don't drain. So
Well, if the pool doesn't typically drain, but
yeah,
and water features, and I'm really not being facetious, is they are, they hold a certain amount of water, but there are a number of things that you can do with your property that become impervious surface.
I'm curious how this relates to stormwater ordinance where we're basically retaining the same amount of runoff that exists currently. So if they build, more impervious surface, they still got to comply with the whatever is needed, like bioretention and stormwater ordinance, where they're still only releasing the same amount that was on the site. And in some of these critical drainage ways, I think we have more strenuous release rates, but how does this jive with that, I guess, is really the case. And
so this example is in the residential zoning district. So this would, or the rural area. So this would be under Ag 2.5. So typically we don't require any detention for development of lots in the Ag 2.5. It's more likely it would be a commercial, industrial, or business district where you would see those critical release rates. Does that answer the question?
sort of. I guess I would be really curious to kind of hear from our MS4 coordinator and how this really kind of jives with our stormwater ordinance and also our drainage ordinance, because
I think that
kind
you
of
would
with
go-
Bernie, where if someone can, do things on their property, but make sure that they're retaining the same type of stormwater release, then, I mean, is it a non-issue in a sense? Obviously we want to have limits, but I guess I'm chasing my own tail on this one, because there's a lot of other overlapping ordinances. I think that we need to understand how they all work together.
So maybe a little bit more information from stormwater in regards to how this relates to their ordinance.
Or if they have any recommendations or opinions on this.
Okay.
Jackie,
Yes,
just for clarification, we're only talking about ag RR here,
this is
ag 2.5.
you will see similar information for other zones, but for tonight's purposes, we're just talking about Ag 2.5. Yes.
I just kind of want to echo something similar to what Bernie is saying about the numbers being low, because I think from an ag perspective, I've been on plenty of lots that have more than, your lower number of 10,000 square feet, that's like a quarter acre. I've been on plenty of lots that, for the sake of functionality from an agriculture perspective, requires a gravel lot, an asphalt lot, barn coverage of more than a quarter acre of surface. And so I think from a needs assessment, you're really cutting into the need of that land from an agriculture perspective, but that's a personal opinion.
And there is I should have mentioned this earlier, there is a footnote on some of these measurements. So 2 is applicable here, and it says excluding agricultural buildings. If you don't like the way that is formatted, or if you think that could be made clear, or if you think we should just not have an impervious cover maximum in this zone, those are all good comments that we could take forward and make those changes.
But now, when you define agricultural buildings, you're only talking about actual structures. Does that include like the gravel lot or the paved lot around a grain operation that you need that land to be able to turn around trucks and things?
Right.
And I think you'd rather have an impervious surface than have gravel or like just dirt that you're just making mud at that point. So.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
That's all that I had. So the next time we'll be meeting as a group, we'll be at that listening session on the 24th.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie, for continuing to lead us through this. So that finishes up our administrative business. So we'll move on to reports. Jackie or Dave, do you have any reports for us tonight? Okay, Jackie.
I don't have anything further.
Okay. That takes us to the end of the meeting then. Thank you all for attending. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Soon to adjourn.
Comments in the chat.
Oh, do we have comments in the chat?
It was just a comment by one of our staff members that Tron recently brought up. So
Okay, all right, well, there were 5 chat things, so.
I posted the link to the flyer in there.
Okay,
Let's try not to use the chat.
thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
thank you.